I'm Daniel Levine, and this is the Bio Report. Opioid overdose, abuse, and addiction affect an estimated 3 million Americans and accounts for $35 billion in U.S. healthcare costs every year. Tris Pharma is developing the opioid Cebranopadol as an effective pain management therapy without the addictive potential of FDA-approved opioids. We spoke to Ketan Mehta, founder and CEO of Tris Pharma, about Cebranopadol, how it modulates the addictive potential by targeting two receptors at once, and its potential to address the opioid crisis. An editor's note: since recording this podcast, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, part of the National Institutes of Health, awarded Tris a 5-year, $16.6 million grant to advance Cebranopadol. Ketan, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Danny.
We're going to talk about pain, Tris Pharma, and its efforts to develop an experimental therapy that is a potential alternative to traditional opioids and can provide pain relief without the side effects that make these therapies so problematic. Perhaps you can begin a little by talking about the unmet need in pain today.
Yes, I think pain, both acute, which is something of a short duration, or a chronic, which could be as long as 12 weeks to 6 months, is really a huge unmet need, because there are about 50 million people today in the United States suffering from both this acute and chronic pain, and they're looking for a treatment cure which is much more effective and has minimal side effects.
There's obviously been a lot of concern about the addictiveness of opioids, and that's complicated the treatment of patients with pain and the approach that doctors take. How much of a concern has this been?
No, this has been a huge, issue, and doctors are a little bit very, how should I say, concerned, because they do not know today, from what we constantly hearing, how to treat this patient, how to help them. Because at one end, they're concerned about the impact of opioids and their side effects, and then especially the addictiveness. So generally, they turn more and more to other drugs, which are either not as effective, yet have some side effects. For example, you have non-steroidal anti-inflammatory or NSAID analgesic, for example. There's a large class starting from ibuprofen to naproxen and so forth. Now, problem with them is they have certain gastric side effects. In some cases, they really do a good job, but because of the side effect on gastric issues, ulcers, etc., you really cannot use them for long duration. And so this is really a big dilemma and creating some real problem for the physicians.
Tris has a portfolio of commercial products focused on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and generic medicines. In 2021, it acquired Park Therapeutics. What attracted you to Park, and how did this transaction come about?
Right, yeah, that was actually, I would say, a very interesting opportunity for us. What happened is that is this drug. Actually, we acquired this. So Park Therapeutics had got an option for this drug from Grünenthal, a big German company. And the drug is highly effective, and they wanted to really develop a very effective opioid, if you will. But what we saw, that the drug is not an opioid, but it's a new kind of opportunity, new kind of opioid, if you will, where its a side effect profile, its impact, especially especially on its non-euphoric, non-addictive potential, really caught my interest. And as I dug into the data and we explored that, we thought this is the drug has a potential to really change the game in pain relief because it is as good as any opioid pain reliever. This has a potential to provide least addictive and almost non-euphoric like safety profile.
How do you see it fitting in with your other products?
Actually, so our focus, as you very well said, that we are focused on ADHD or attention deficit products. We are also focused on developing some of the products for neurological diseases. I mean, patients really want some unique treatment. There are enough gaps in CNS-based products, central nervous system-based products, and so having a pain reliever really fits into that continuum, if you will, and so we are very excited about that.
The transaction gave you the experimental therapy Cebranopadol. What is Cebranopadol?
So, by the way, congratulations. You pronounced first time without any difficulty. I tell you, not easy. Cebranopadol is a first of its kind, what we call full agonist of dual receptors, which is MOP receptors and NOP receptors. The MOP receptor brings the efficacious or the efficacy, but NOP receptor not only adds to that effect of pain relief, but it also attenuates and blunts the side effects of mu receptor activation. So all this addictiveness, euphoric behavior, etc., we are not seeing in this in the patient is because of the NOP receptor activation. So it's really a unique dual receptor pain reliever, in our opinion.
So is it in essence doing what opioids do while at the same time counteracting their negative impacts?
Exactly. Because what it is doing is it is giving you a full activation of mu receptor, which has more traditional opioid do, but it has equally full agonism or activation, if you will, of NOP receptor. That's the new receptor, which was discovered about 25 years ago. And that activation is helping us dominate that all the side effect profile of traditional opioids.
Any sense on how it might compare or differ from opioids in terms of its effects?
So far, in fact, we have done numerous efficacy trials. We have treated about 2,000 patients. And what we are seeing is that it is as efficacious as traditional opioids. So we do not believe there would be any hesitation from the data that we are seeing thus far of interchanging with opioid in terms of its effectiveness.
And is the expectation it can treat the same variety of pain that an opioid would be used to treat?
Absolutely. In fact, the drug has been studied in acute pain, lower back chronic pain. We have also done trials in peripheral neuropathic, the diabetic peripheral neuropathy patient, cancer patient, and osteoarthritis patient. All of these patients where there are no other drugs are effective than opioid, and we are seeing that Cebranopadol is as efficacious in all of these different treatment modalities like other opioids. So we think this has the potential to be a solid alternative to the traditional opioid therapy.
And what's known about it from studies that have been conducted to date?
So what the studies are today thus far telling us that we can expect this drug to have a very high efficacy profile, but much better safety profile in terms of the addictiveness, in terms of its euphoric nature, the withdrawal, for example, of the drug. I mean, as you know, when you take opioids, you really have to wean the patients off the drug. You can't just stop them because of the lot of withdrawal effect and symptoms. So you really give them lesser and lesser dose after a long duration. While in this particular case, you can just stop the treatment and there is no impact whatsoever. The data has shows that we have given about 2,000 patients and we have not been able to see any side effects or withdrawal issues in all these patients. And that is going to be a big game changer, I believe, when you take into account all the important safety profiles like minimal euphoria, minimal addictiveness, and no withdrawal. I think makes it a tremendous opportunity for the patients today.
One of the common complaints that people who use these drugs also have is constipation. Is it known the effects that your drug might have on constipation?
Yes, because it is a class, because it also activates that mu receptor. What we are seeing is, and it is still early, so I'm not sure we can make a solid claim. We are seeing it is much less, but nevertheless, there is still some constipation that we have seen in the earlier our studies thus far.
I know the company also conducted a human abuse potential study. What did that study entail, and what did it show?
Right. So that's actually a good question. That you asked me what I would say a two-part question. Let's first talk about the abuse potential study, that what they entail. So what really you have to do is you usually start with a population which tends to abuse this opioid or these drugs. So you have to have those patients who are able to tell the difference between a placebo and a drug like oxycodone. And so we start with that population, and you give them now Cebranopadol. Okay, what we did differently in our study then it was that we gave them a very strong opioid, which has a high addictiveness, like oxycodone. And then we gave them tramadol, which is a very weak opioid and has a very weak addictiveness. It is not as highly addictive as oxycodone, if you will. And we wanted to see where Cebranopadol fits between these two bookends. The results actually were stunning, much better than what we expected. What we saw that Cebranopadol was even less addictive or literally no addictive, almost as good as placebo in terms of the results. So these abuse studies have shown that Cebranopadol will be as efficacious like strong opioids like oxycodone, morphine, etc. But in terms of its addictiveness, its property where patient would want to go and like, quote unquote, that addictive feeling or euphoria, it will be even less than something like tramadol, which for example, drug enforcement calls it a scheduled substance class 4. And it is even less than that. And that to me is a game-changing data that we have shown in humans thus far. And further studies now confirm this. I think we will surely have a great product on our hand, and lots of patients can really get some real benefits.
What's the development path forward?
So I think moving forward, we have now started really talking to FDA, sharing some of the results we have. So we are in the final stages of having an agreement with FDA on our phase 3 studies. As you know, now we will be going in a larger number of patients in a single study. And then we will be doing a couple of acute studies, chronic pain studies, etc. And all that phase 3 data will help us determine what the label would be of the drug.
And in terms of the size of those studies and the indications, how do you expect those to take shape?
Right. So we expect it will be a sizable study. We will be studying in about 500 to 600 patients at least. I mean, we are finalizing all this thing, but it will be to that level, if not more. And it will take probably, I would say, about 15 to 18 months at least. And by the time we compile and get all the results, and of course, we will be doing in acute pain, chronic lower back pain, diabetic peripheral neuropathy, at least in the first of our expected trials. And then we will follow up with some of the other pain, like in osteoarthritis and the other forms of peripheral neuropathy and so forth. So we think first phase, it will take about 2 years or so, and then it will take some time. But by the time we do the early work in pain, we may able to go ahead and submit an application to FDA for approval while we're continuing to test for additional indications.
And in terms of endpoints, what do you expect to use? Are there endpoints that wouldn't be patient perspective endpoints?
So there are very set protocols. There are certain scales that have been validated, and these are the scores and analogs that give you certain primary endpoints, and then there are certain specific measurements that you would take, secondary time points, and so forth. So there are very specific, well-defined guidelines that industry and FDA has established.
We see a lot of companies in the space today that I'd say appear to have gone public too early. Tris is a privately held company. Why has the company decided to remain private?
Well, I don't think it was a very deliberate point of view on my part. I feel this is a very entrepreneurial company. I started literally in my basement 23 years ago. And as we started developing different technology and products, it's continued to grow, and we were able to self-fund. So we have come to this point really without needing any large sums of money. But in fact, at this point now, we are exploring. For example, this phase 3 work will require a sizable capital and also further commercializing this product. So we are looking at bringing really outside investor or also going public. I mean, that is all part of right now exploration that we are doing. It will not slow us down, but we will eventually need to have some need for more capital and so forth. Even the company is very successful and really commercial because we have a portfolio of commercial products and so forth. But we think we will need that additional capital, and that's why I don't envision that company will remain private forever. Yeah.
And in terms of a sales force for doing a commercial launch of a drug like Cebranopadol, would you expect to commercialize it on your own? And if so, what would you be doing to prepare for a commercial launch?
Right. So see, we are already today commercial with our ADHD product, as I mentioned before. So we have a full infrastructure. We have about more than 100 sales rep, associated all the infrastructure in analytics and whatnot. But you're right. Once we have Cebranopadol, I think we are exploring as to what would be the best way. Is it something we are going to do ourselves alone? Or maybe we will seek help of some of the larger company to go with. And we will have to make a determination based on how the results are coming along and what we are learning at this point. So we still have some time before we start setting our path pretty much in stone, so to say.
Ketan Mehta, CEO of Tris Pharma. Ketan, thanks so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. The Bio Report is a production of the Levine Media Group. To automatically download this podcast each week, subscribe to our RSS feed or through iTunes or other podcast manager. To join our mailing list, go to levinemediagroup.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line or are interested in sponsoring this podcast, send email to danny@levinemediagroup.com. Special thanks to Jonah Levine, who composed our theme music, and the Jonah Levine Collective, which performs it.